A very good evening to you, esteemed viewer. Welcome back from News at 8, and here we are with Family Hour. Family Hour is on every Monday to Friday with different themes. Monday is always education, and today we are here with our edition of education. Of course, we are going to talk about parents and their involvement. We know that it is holiday, and to some parents, it's about going, pick the child, bring them back home, then you'll never know anything else. You never go for meetings, you never interact with the teachers. I mean, you literally don't do anything. All you know is paying school fees and delivering the child to school and picking them back home. Is that what your role should be as a parent? Today we are looking at your involvement as a parent in the education of your child. Why is it important? How can you be part of this education besides paying school fees? That and a lot more is what we are going to discover by the end of this show. Edwin Austin Mukalazi is my name, and we are glad to have just on my immediate left Canon Alice Ddamulira. Canon.
Yes, please.
A good evening.
Good evening to you, Edwin. It's nice to be on the show once again, and good evening, our viewers.
And then we have Mrs. Christine Kintu. It's a pleasure having you again.
A very good evening to our beloved viewers and to everyone who tunes into this program. And a good evening to our crew, the people we are working with.
Wow, we are looking at the involvement of parents. We are glad that we have Mrs. Kintu, who has always put a disclaimer. I'm not an educationist, but she's a parent. And we also have Canon Alice, who is a parent, but also an educationist. She's the director, St. Mark's College, Namagoma, and earlier she said she's a teacher by profession.
And vocation.
And
vocation.
And vocational.
Yeah.
that is interesting. Now, we are dealing with the right people. We have the right people to give us the right information about our topic today. Parents and teachers at the same time. But I also believe that Mrs. Kintu is, at least the time you've been close to and been in the education environment.
Rubbing shoulders with the important people.
Okay, that is so wonderful. But Canon, to kickstart with our topic today, we are looking at the parents' involvement and what are the stages of parental involvement, if we can pick it from there, in their children's education.
Thank you so much, Edwin. Probably what we need to do is to understand what is education.
Okay.
We need to understand what is education, because many times we imagine that education informs the cognitive ability. In other words, the head, what the education, the knowledge that we acquire from school. But education is more than that, because we educate the head, we educate the heart, we educate the hands. So when we talk about education in its entirety and the involvement of parents, I will just inform you that from my experience, the things that have affected the children the most is what happens in our homes. Before even we talk about, I'll talk about my experience in high school. When a child is coming from a very stable family, it reflects. When a child is coming from a family where there is instability, emotional instability, it reflects. And that's a given. It's just like if you leave home and things are not working out well and you come to work, it will show. So that's how we are made up. So if a parent is going to be held back to think that if I've paid school fees, I have done everything or whatever it takes for the child, that is the greatest contextual deceit. That you can actually sit down and think that because you paid school fees, everything is supposed to happen automatically. And
you even ask the child, what haven't I given you?
What haven't I given you? And I'll tell you that I have seen parents who are very, very disappointed when they had very intelligent children, when they had enough money to pay their school fees, and the children never turned out the way they wanted them to turn out. Because there are certain critical things that had to be addressed by the parent being fully involved, and they were never addressed. And I would not even probably condemn the parents or judge them. It's because they never knew any better. There are parents who know that when I take my child in school and I pay full school fees and I visit them, they are supposed to come out as the best children. But it is more than that. And I would want to say that when you are getting involved with a child, it's not only about the education, it involves the spiritual aspects, it involves the physical, that is the health, it involves social, their economic, their emotional. You know, it is a package. So we could easily say we'll spend maybe a few weeks unpacking the package of what it takes for a parent to be fully involved. And I'll say this quickly before I allow Mrs. Kintu to say something. Do you realize that we talked about preschool, you know, last Monday. Do you know that a child performs so well when they know that the parent is in the audience?
Yes.
Not because the teacher taught them well, but they know that this is my greatest audience, this is my greatest cheerleader.
My cheerleader is in the house.
Is in the house. So, you know, if a child is making a presentation and they quickly scan the audience and mommy is there, the entire demeanor changes. Now they are doing it to the best of their ability because mommy or daddy is in the audience. So parent involvement is very critical. I find parents at times when they say, you're always calling us for meetings. Why are you always calling us for meetings? You know, let me tell you, parents who are out there, please be fully involved in your children's education because it is for a short time. It is for a season. We know that the season comes and goes. When it has gone, it has gone.
Wow. Mrs. Kintu, back to you about parental involvement. She talked about something that reminded me, and this is practical. I remember I used to act and then sing in the choir, but each time I saw my dad or my mom in the audience, that is what
with a huge smile. Yes.
But we're talking about parental involvement, and you know, I think this very term that has just been completed, we saw a video that was circulating on social media about a parent who went to visit a child, and then they ended up beating the child severely, and but the child wasn't even responding. The child was lying down, but the parent was beating her, and she didn't seem to be moved. Should we say that these are some of the ways a parent can be actively involved in their child's education? They even beat them at school when they have maybe done wrong on VD.
When you gave us this topic about parental involvement in education, I try to think about what is education.
Okay.
She mentioned it at the beginning. We need to redefine education to our people because they've lost it. I know that you are sitting there on your TV set and are saying, but I know what education is. But sometimes we need to redefine these things. It is a process of receiving and giving systematic instruction. But does systematic instruction only happen in the school? No, it happens at home as well. It is even what you take your children through during holiday is an enlightening experience. It is a learning process. It is a form of education. Because education is teaching knowledge to others and receiving knowledge from others. So if we remember that, then we will know that it is not limited to the school environment. There must be a collaboration between the school and the home. What is being taught needs to be reinforced at home, and what you teach at home needs to be reinforced in the school. So people should not only think that education is the one where they give reports, where they bring books, where they do that, and that is why our participation is mandatory. Because this child will leave the school, but will remain with you. He will go on to another school, and another school, and another school. But being your child is for a lifetime, as long as you're on the face of this earth. So your involvement is mandatory. She said crucial, she said critical. It is mandatory. that the child is that the parent is fully involved in the child's education. How do you interact with the teachers who are teaching them? There used to be a parent that I knew. He's gone on to be with the Lord. But when we would arrive, you know, as mothers, we come, you have packed food, you want to serve it, then there's cold soda there, and as soon as he'd arrive, he'd go straight to class. Of course, there was that part of the role to go, but he'd go straight to class, and when he'd finish his children, he'd go on to check the teachers of our children and the teachers of other people's children. And it was like, we serve lunch, we finish, and he comes at about 3. And of course we'd say, where is he, what are they? But I mean, he was so engaged in the need to interact and understand, because this child is a friend of his child, and they will influence his child. So one way or the other, he wants to know, how is Alice doing? And what are the things that she needs to? Because some of these parents of Alice were even absent. But he would play the role of a parent who is fully involved. So he understood our children. Then he'd come back, and when he'd sit and give him cold food, he'd be able to speak into the lives of all these children because he has interacted with their teachers. And he understands exactly what Alice's problem is, what Edwin's problem is, where he needs to work harder, where he's finding difficulty, because he was fully involved. He's no longer with us, but I think it was a great lesson for us to learn. And I think it is important that the people who are listening to us find out, how best can I participate in this that you are doing? I have a problem with people thinking that money does it all. Money does not do it. You need to be present.
Exactly.
The ministry of presence.
Of presence. Yeah.
We start from there. How can this parent be present?
Actually, when she said it, the ministry of presence is something that was just close to my mouth, talking about the power of presence. In the previous show, I shared that there's a parent who said that I want to be in a school where I am actually known, not in an arrogant way, but whereby teachers feel my presence, right? And when we're having this engagement, it's not like I'm coming in to find fault, but I'm finding a collaborative way of how we can manage to educate our child. Share their talents with me and let me know how I can support them. Share their abilities with me, but also share their shortfalls with me. We're talking about the power of reinforcement. If a teacher, and I'll tell you, many of the times we reinforce things unknowingly. But how I wish we would be very intentional about reinforcing some of these things. If a teacher mentions to you about what is happening to your child, take deep interest. Don't think that people are against your child. Try to find out a little more. Where are we going wrong? Because in their young minds, they don't have the full knowledge, but they need to be informed enough to make good decisions. So get to be interested and find out. Like she said, many of us, when we go to visiting day, we just want to sit down and share the food and, listen in. And we do it a lot. I inclusive at times. But I always go out of my way to call a teacher whom I think is interested in my child's education. And I engage them. And I let them know that I am interested in them telling me the truth about my child. How are they progressing? Where are they failing? How can I be of help? Is it time for me to show up? Is it time for me to stay back? Is it time for me to speak about it? And I am fully involved. But I also let my child know that this teacher, when they come round, to let you know about certain things, we've had a conversation. It is not something that we are doing just to pass time, or we are doing it and we don't want you to know, it's a secret. No, it is something that we are doing together, so that at the end of the day, you can optimize your potential, but also come out one of the best. Because that is the area, it's like we're in the potter's hands, right? Talking about a future that wouldn't want to be betrayed. We're in the potter's hands, so all of us are in partnership. I'm in partnership with God, I'm in partnership with the teachers, I'm in partnership with the friends, I'm in partnership with fellow parents. So we all want to say, wait a minute, how can we help this child to grow up in the best way ever? right? Because the environment is not as friendly as you may presume, right? And even when we talk about maybe mental security or emotional stability or mental stability, all these things come within that package, right? So I strongly believe that presence should be physical, but also psychologically. When a child has gotten something, maybe they're challenged, they should be bold enough to share with you that challenge, because they know mommy is present.
Yes.
I have a parent who was sharing with me. She knew that probably her daughter may not really perform, or was not up to the task. But growing up, she was this kind of parent. Why are you doing this? How can you do this? And this time she decided not to say anything. She's about to do her exams, and she said, let me write a beautiful letter to my daughter. A beautiful, motivating letter to my daughter. That girl said, each time I would sit and read that letter, I would remember mommy. I would see how mommy cares and how she's interested, you know, in my future. And she would sit down and read. The parent wasn't there physically, but psychologically,
it did a magic.
It did a magic. Right? So even the words that we speak in the lives of our children, they are magical. So when we talk about parental involvement in the education, it's not about maybe coming just for meetings or whatever. It's a package. But always to know that my involvement is for a season. Each time you echo that, each time you remember that, each time you're mindful of that, for every opportunity of involvement, you'll be very intentional.
Wow, wow, wow.
I wanted to say this.
Yes, please.
Because she was talking about, and you mentioned the clip that has been going.
Yes, yes.
Perhaps that parent, that's her form or his form. I didn't see the clip. That's their form of disciplining that child.
Okay.
But there's disciplining to shame, and there's disciplining to help. So probably this child has been beaten like that several times, and she's numb. She's numb to, she may feel the physical pain, but she wants to make a statement. I am not moved, I shall not be moved. You know, just like a tree that's planted by the waterside. She's trying to make a statement, because you want to look at the parent and the anger they are unleashing, and you want to look at the child's response, and you said she was not moved. So, as a parent, when you're trying to involve yourself in your child's education, you have to package it with unconditional love. Unconditional. You tell the child that I have your back, I am in this with you, I'm actually standing with you, I am interested in seeing your success, I am modeling a selfless attitude, and I'm giving my whole time, my whole attention, my first attention to see that you achieve in this area that you are working at. When you simply punish, do I say punishment is wrong? No. Because the Bible says spare a rod and spoil the child. But it depends. How many times have you told this child about this thing that you may be punishing them for? It may be a first time, it may be a need for discussion, it may be something that you need to negotiate, it may be a misunderstanding, and of course, everybody will start by defending themselves. The child will start by defending themselves, then you hear from the teacher, and you create a verdict. But you want to tell the child before you beat them, I am punishing you because I love you, and because I want the very best in you. That child will respond to that beating with a full understanding. But when they are numb, they don't care. They know. Yes. They are defiant. And you are cultivating a very hard to live with person. Eventually, the strokes will not help, but it will build a hardened heart. So, some of the parents' roles, I want to say just one more. To support. Supporting your child in whatever endeavor they are up to. I used to fear. As we went through primary school, they were asking questions. Some of them I could answer. I was more aligned to some subjects, and my husband was more aligned to other subjects. But sometimes one of us was not available to answer the difficult question. And then you say, what do I do? I was challenged, but I had to be very intentional and go back and read in order to be relevant to the child when they begin to ask the question. So give them the intellectual support that they need. You may not know everything, and you do well to tell them, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll try and find out. But I will tell you what I know. Then the emotional. Just like you and me, our children go through stresses of different types. They suffer at school, they are misunderstood at school, they get lonely, they get sad, they have emotions like us. Are you the parent who offers the emotional support? You know, there are some parents who respond like that. You see how harsh we can become? And it becomes so difficult. Then the physical, we talked about presence, and then the spiritual. Do you pray for your child? Do you pray with your child? Because there's one thing to pray when you're at home, but when you get the opportunity to come to school and see them, do you take time to pray with them? So what are you struggling with? What is the most difficult? What subject is it? Okay, apart from being able to talk to the teacher, I want us to pray. Let's hold hands, let's pray about this. Father, tuleta ensonge mathematics are. I had a particular child who was average in mathematics. However, the teacher came and told me, you know what, I see a lot of potential in this girl. She's a mathematics pro. And I said, no, because I say, all you need to do is to encourage her. So I told her dad to do, because at least for him he's a statistician, he knows, say, handle some things. But even after she left the school, this gentleman went on to send me a clip to advise me about a certain university that he thought she would do well in her mathematics. She's now finished. She's doing very well in mathematics. She's an accountant. But you see, it took a lot of careful partnering with the teacher and me, the parent, and to see what can I do, how can I add value to this thing. It is our responsibility to give the spiritual support, the social support, the physical support, the emotional support to ensure that our children advance well. That is our responsibility as parents.
Thank you so much. Canon Alice, yes, as someone who is actively into school, into a school environment, are there moments, are there things you look at and say, but for surely parents throw to us all the burden and responsibility of their children. Like we said earlier that the children are in school for 9 months and they're only with their parents in a year for 3 months. So are there moments are there things you look at and say, no, for this one and this one, parents have really not done enough?
Now the interesting bit that I'll talk about me as a person. When I look at a child, I don't see a burden. I see an opportunity for transformation. And that is one of the things I'm encouraging my teachers to say, wait a minute. Each of these, and I always say this, that opportunity is a silent visitor. Right? Because you don't know what this child is going to become. That is one. Two, even when you don't know what they are going to become for the future, it is to speak to yourself that this is my moment to ascend and I'm in the position of authority. Time is going to come when actually it will be descending for me and there will be, it will be ascending for that child. It is a pattern that we cannot change. Right? It's a given. So as we put ourselves in that position, in a school environment for the 9 months, speak to yourself. I want, while I descend, to have people ascending who will serve me relevantly.
Yes.
So what you invest in them,
who will celebrate you.
Exactly.
They will celebrate you
I celebrate you. So as you invest in them, invest in them with worthwhile ingredients that at the end of the day, what you give is what you receive. Right? So that is where I would want to start from. And that's why I say that if I am putting my best foot forward for this child, I want the parent to be extremely collaborative. Let's have a conversation about this child, because it's amazing what God has placed into this child that you and I don't know. But what do we need to do? Talking about parental involvement, I would also want to encourage the conversations that parents have with the children. What conversations do you know, you are leaving this child in my hands for 9 months. But when you get home, you're actually running me down and letting this child know that I'm not as important, so they cannot listen to me. So what you don't know, that it's that to the detriment of the child. But one of the things that bothers me is I want to ask this parent, when you were 13, did you know any better? You needed great guidance. So why are you misleading a 13-year-old? You know? With your experiences as a 45-year-old. It's totally different. So for me, I keep saying, get involved in the child's education. But let's have relevant conversations. Now, it's not about you or the teacher. It's about the destiny of this child. Can we have positive conversations? So the conversations that we have about the school and the children, the conversations that we have with our children, right? The conversations that we have with our teacher. Let's marry all those three and say at the end of the day, this child is going to be aligned to their destiny. If a teacher is informing me, wait a minute, your child is good in mathematics, I have no room to say that I'm going to doubt, because I don't teach that child. It is the teacher informing me. Yes, there could be doubt, but can we work together to ensure that this child actually builds that capacity? Let's optimize all potential. Let's optimize. I'll tell you, our society will be a better place. And maybe just to divert a little bit, what we are suffering from in the form of competition, comparison, and covetousness, it is because people are not aligned to what they are called to do. We are running other people's races. I want to be like Mrs. Kintu. I want to be like Adrian. I want to be... But wait a minute. There is something that we are called to be within you. So if we can actually exploit that for the goodness of this child, a parent has to be involved, such that what happens at home speaks to what's happening at school, and we give good guidance to this child.
I'd like to ask that after the break,
yes,
would pick up on that one word that she has used.
Exactly. We are coming back shortly. Kindly come back with us.